Hello, this is Mark, and today I'm having tea with Mick. I'm actually having a cup of green tea. Green tea, actually, I like to have in the morning. It's kind of like refreshing. It gets you up a little bit, and I really do enjoy my green tea in the morning. So, Mick, you want to introduce yourself to everybody and say hello?
Hi, I'm Mick. I'd like to introduce myself to the group. I think a few people have responded to things I've written, so this is me in person now. Mark's invited me on this show, so I'm interested in what we are going to be talking about, so I'm looking forward to it.
Well, thank you very much, Mick, and we will go right into it. Right before we went live, we were talking about communication. And you were sharing how communication is relative to you when you do for your living. Would you want to share more about that?
Yes, I'm a psychotherapist. I work a lot with people who are experiencing difficulties in their life. It's something I've done for 20 years now. And it's been a very important part of my life as well, learning about human nature. I think we learn a lot from being with people on their journey. We learn a lot about them. We learn a lot about ourselves. And communication is a really vital part of that. I think how we communicate with others, but more fundamentally is how we communicate within ourselves, towards ourselves, and how that creates a lot of self-concepts, beliefs about ourselves. So communication is really vital, actually, to us as human beings. And it's something I talk a lot about and spend a lot of time thinking about.
Mick, while you're talking, one word that seems to come up a lot with communication, I guess, with what you do, is truth. How is truth really important in terms of communication in general and with others?
Well, I think truth it's connected with so many things. It's connected with our integrity. It's connected to what we believe about ourselves. And I mean, before I worked as a psychotherapist, I used to work within psychiatry. And actually I did a lot of psychotherapy with people with, diagnosed psychiatric illnesses and conditions. And one of the things that is really prevalent there, in fact, it's almost always there, is that people with extreme psychological conditions really have never had their reality validated. It's been something that has been taken away from them, not being allowed to exist. So people actually end up going crazy through that. So truth is really important. Truth in our experience, truth in what we believe, and to have that validated by other people it's really where our sanity comes from. And the more we have people around us that support us in that, and we can be more open in expressing our truth, I think the healthier and wealthier we are in many emotional and spiritual ways. So it's vital to our existence, I think, is truth, so that we can speak it and we can hear other people's.
And I'm pretty sure that self-knowledge is really important with what you do as well, right? Self-knowledge?
Yeah, I think, I mean, my approach to my work, but to my life really, is about integrating. It's about unifying different parts of who I am, really. Instead of pushing them away, is bringing them back and getting to know them again. So, self-knowledge is really important in that, to be able to reflect, to be able to understand things, even when they're difficult, actually, because I think we get stuck when we find it very hard to bring back and connect with the things that we find difficult. We get into lots of internal conflicts. So, to have knowledge around that is really important, to see what's going on, to be able to understand that, conceptualize it, get support with it. I think is really important.
Mick, what is the effect of people that have negative thoughts? How impactful are negative thoughts on one's life?
Well, we start to feel differently about who we are. it changes a lot of our energy systems in our body. It creates stress. Our stress responses kick in. We start to get defensive because even though we're being negative, there's often something that's very familiar and there's a way we believe it, but also we don't want to feel like this. So it creates a lot of internal tension. It stops us expanding and growing as people. We start to lose compassion for ourselves. We start to become lesser in many ways. I think we start to hide from the world. We don't show people who we are because we have this negative belief about ourselves, which interferes with our connection with other people. So it has a profound effect on us, actually. A profound effect.
How about awareness? Is awareness useful to somebody when they're thinking negative thoughts?
Yeah, I think so. I think we need to know they're happening because they're happening whether we're aware of them or not. We can hear them as beliefs, we can hear them as thoughts, we can hear them as other people's voices, we can hear them as our own voices. And the more actually we tune into that, the more aware we become of it. And it's really important because then we understand the dynamics that are working within ourselves and we can start to change that. So often, I encourage people to listen to the negative voice and just say, thanks for your opinion. I hear what you're saying. If you get into fighting with it, it sort of strengthens it in many ways. I think it's important to just hear what it's got to say. So it's got something important to say. It's just saying it in a very bad way, in a way that's not helping us. And it's most of it is based on past experiences, and it comes from a very young part of ourselves as a way of trying to protect ourselves. So it is important energy. But to be able to update ourselves and learn how to look after ourselves in new ways, we need to be able to hear this and listen to it and allow it to trust us, that we can take charge now. So yeah, I mean, they're very profound for us, I think, are negative thoughts. And the more we can understand them and hear them and change them around, the better it is for us.
And how about inner vision? How do you help people with their inner vision?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting one because, I mean, that can come from many places, I think. But I think for anyone to change, we need to have a sense of purpose, a sense of ambition around it. So ambition is not necessarily, about achieving things externally. Ambition can be about internal things. But if we don't have a space that we're moving into, then it's very hard to change. So the inner vision comes through creating the image of who we want to be or how we want to be. And it's vital to have that. We can't move towards it without it. How we create that is different with different people. But it's really very important for any form of change to occur, actually.
What about the mundane mind? How is that relevant to what you do? The mundane mind.
Could you say a little more about the mundane mind so I know what it is you're meaning?
The mundane mind is when someone is set in their own ways. Even when it's not beneficial to what they do. Okay, so they're quite fixed. Again, that's a place of safety. That's okay, I think. Eventually, there'll come a time when people's energy changes with that. But, I mean, we talk about this probably in terms of being the script quite a lot, where we stay fixed with what is familiar for us. Underneath that is often, there's a lot of familiarity with it, but there's often a lot of anxiety. I think change is very provocative to us because we are moving into a place of unknownness. And I think as human beings, we at a psychological level, we want to try and create safety and structure
so that we don't feel that. So the mundane mind in a way is doing that for us. However, it can often be acting when it's outdated and we don't need to be listening to it and responding to it. And then that comes the challenge. And, you know, it's about creating trust within ourselves, trust in the part of us that wants to move beyond it. And that takes a little faith, I think. That takes a little time to find a way of doing that. So instead of being in our lower self, to move to a sort of more expansive self, really, it takes a lot of trust, I think, within ourselves, and often a lot of support. It's not an easy thing to do. So I wouldn't be critical of yourself being in that. I think it's a stage of emerging, and we do emerge from it in time.
So do you believe that people have access to what's called a divine self? And if so, how would you describe that divine self?
Well, I do believe that. I wouldn't have a definition for it at all, actually. I do believe that in many ways, I think of us as spiritual beings in human form, actually. You know, and I think that's often what we struggle with. But one of the difficulties with trying to define something, and I really like the idea of this, it's more Eastern logic, which is paradoxical in its ideas. So if you think about trying to define something, as soon as you try and define something, you move further away from it. It becomes more elusive. And actually, we need to just be able to experience whatever this is, I think, to be able to just connect with it without necessarily making any firm diagnosis of what it is. I think being receptive and connected is a much more important in understanding this than any cognitive, rational way of making sense of it. So I really won't be able to define it. I think it's something we experience. And I think, you know, from the sort of where people write in this forum, there's people who seem to have that connection. I mean, it's hard to know, because as I say, as soon as you're writing about something, it's hard to get clarity around that. But I think it's something we experience, and to define it, I think, just creates a lot of problems. I mean, you look at the history of philosophy; it's never succeeded in any of this. A lot of ideas have been generated from it, but it's never really succeeded in doing that. So I won't presume to think that I could do that either. But I just like the experience of it, really. That's my connection with it.
What about taking like a deep inner journey? Is if someone is, you know, comes to you and they seem to be kind of like really sucked up in a lie that's not true, is taking a deep inner journey beneficial for them to find out the truth of who they are?
If they're stuck in a lie that's not true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's how they connect with that. And if they're able to do that when they've been subject to a lot of lies about who they are, I think that's absolutely marvelous, actually. Yeah, and to encourage anybody who has that courage around them to dare to believe differently to what they've been told about themselves and defined by people. Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, that is real spirit in someone, is that, I think. That is real spirit, is that.
What about,
I'm not sure that did that answer your question.
That does.
Yeah, okay.
How about, like, you know, I know, you know, in your field, you probably help a lot of people with transformation. Are there any like initial steps that you could share with somebody in terms of transformation?
Well, that's a good question, because I'm going to do that in 2 programs' time. I've got another thing before. So I think transformation comes from the deeper energy in ourselves. And to be able to support ourselves and encourage ourselves from that deep place is where transformation comes. And that can take quite a lot of declouding. We get very busy in our minds. We get very stuck in self-concept. And, you know, one of the things you asked on the forum last week, I think it was, Mark, is could we make £1 million in an evening? You know, and in some ways that's a really difficult question to answer, because there's so many things that build up to that, isn't there? But just to have the ability to open one's mind to something very different, even if it's not possible, but to just see if it is possible, to contemplate that, is really good at creating energy within ourselves. So instead of relying on what we've always relied on in terms of structures around what we think about things and how we understand the world, just to turn it on its head and say, is this possible? And I think that comes with any transformation, is we have to just ask that question, is this possible? And that can really connect actually at a very deep energetic level within ourselves.
Mick, in your work, do you run into people that are, you know, and I don't know if you're open to it or it's something that's relevant, but that have past life experiences that affect them now?
That's not something I particularly explore with people, although some people explore it with me, and it can be quite profound when they think about things in this way. So people who've done this have gone somewhere else and found that information and then use it in their life now to integrate that. I'm a believer in that. I think there's enough evidence, even anecdotal, to convince me. And I've certainly had experiences of some otherworldliness from people. There's a good theory that this can actually have quite a limiting effect if we've had a lot of difficult past lives. And, you know, in a sense, it's the karmic lifespan, really, of life, death, and rebirth. And, you know, the idea behind that is we bring things with us into this life. Now, whether that's the soul or whether that's energy or that's, you know, memories, it's hard to know. But I think for people who believe that they've had these experiences and feel stuck with them, I think it's really important to pay attention to them. I think there's a lot of energy in that and ways of understanding their life now. So yeah, it's important stuff. I'm open to it. I have no direct evidence myself, but I'm in terms of my past lives, but I'm open to it.
Mick, how does having a clear perspective beneficial to oneself?
Well, it unifies us. It unifies our energy. It unifies our processes. We're much more coherent as people. We speak with one voice. Often people struggle to say what they mean and understand and know what they mean and what they feel and what they're experiencing. So it creates clarity within oneself, which is really important, I think, to be coherent and integral. And it connects us externally much easier as well, because we're less internal through that clarity. So it creates an openness of connection.
In your work and with what you do, what would you say creates the most limitations in one's life?
I think there's two parts to that. There is, the first one is difficult childhood experiences, and then there's the psychological phenomenon to continue our experiences in the present. So, you know, when we keep repeating past experiences currently, which that's more present than we imagine, actually. So it's a two-part, and it's a play on time, really. We often not in the present enough. So we're replaying things. So, for example, as soon as we're in script, we're not in the present moment. We may think we are because it's very familiar, but we're not. And it's how we use time at a psychological level. So the idea behind our past experiences is we're always trying to undo them. We're always trying to heal them, to make them better. So we often seek experiences in life to try and do that. And that's why often relationships are very difficult, because they can be transforming for us. We get a good relationship, or they can be very repetitive when we get a relationship that's too familiar with our past. So that would mean that we're not able to spend enough time in the present. We're more in the past. So it's the integration of the two, really. We want to bring the past into the present to be able to integrate it. Otherwise, our present is always moving into the past. It's a very subtle thing that we do with time. So that's the two aspects of that. You know, bringing the present and working out the past experiences and how they affect our present and limit our experience in the present. And them two need to become much more together, really, rather than on a different time scale. Does that make sense? That sounds a little vague to me. I'm not sure whether that particularly answered your question. Does that feel like an answer to your question?
It definitely does. In fact, Nick, you're doing a great job. You're doing a really good job, and actually it's going very well, and I'm actually really enjoying this. I'm getting a lot out of it. And I'm pretty sure people watching this also getting a lot out of it also, you know? And I'm pretty sure in your line of work, this one word probably comes up a lot when working with others. The word is habit.
Yeah. Yeah, and that again, you know, all these words are coming back to a very similar thing. You know, they have quite a big impact on us in that, and we don't notice them until we try and change them. And then we notice them and realize how hard they are and how ingrained our old pattern is. So try to create the new pattern is very difficult. And there's this thing in psychology, I think, that says 21 days to create a new habit. So it's completely rubbish. You try and create a habit, it takes years and years and years. If you do it for 21 days, you've not mastered it at all. You know, you need to keep on doing things. So habits, yeah, I mean, you know, it goes to many levels. It goes to a physiological level in the body. It goes to neural networks and how difficult they are to break and re-establish. So yeah, the habit is something we do, and it's the, you know, in some ways it's the energy of the script. That's what keeps the script going, keeps its power there, by taking the familiar habit, which is the lower energy level. You know, we're doing what's easy.
So where does discernment come in when it comes down to habits?
Well, the word I use a lot is to be curious. Be curious about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And take a lot of notice of that. Why am I doing this? You know, why am I eating this cake right now when I'm not hungry? Why am I distracting myself with the TV when I could be doing something much more productive, you know? And these are just habits we do all the time. So just to be curious about it, actually. It's important not to create too much inner conflict around it, because you're wanting to let go of these things and introduce new things in an easy way. Because, you know, what we tend to do is create a lot of energy around it and go, I must do this, and start off with a lot of energy, and it generally whittles away because there's too much of a fight. Because these habits are strong, these old habits, even if they're very subtle, they're very powerful, and they don't want to die. You know, they're an energy system. They want to still have power and presence. So they're not going to let go easily. So you need to create some cohesion around oneself in terms of change, I think. It can't do it too aggressively, too abruptly. It doesn't help, I don't think.
It's pretty amazing about habits, right? The bad ones we know are bad, but yet we always find ourselves being tempted to go towards them. Like people that smoke cigarettes. They know smoking cigarettes is bad and it causes cancer, you see all the things, but yet people are still drawn going towards smoking cigarettes. And also, like, it's fun, it's amazing how we give control over our lives over the habits. Is this what you attribute to a lot of what people suffer with?
Yeah, sure. I mean, smoking is a very good example because my take on smoking is it's a way of controlling the breath as much as anything. So when people are under stress, they go and take a cigarette and really feel the breath. And that creates a lot of separation in self, actually, from a deeper, stressed inner child, or whatever we want to call this. And it just pushes emotions down. So it's a very particular type of habit, is that, to control one's emotions. And that's what, an example of becoming curious. How come I'd want to smoke right now? What am I feeling? And people often smoke when they feel anxious, but actually smoking creates anxiety. So when they learn how to let go of it, which, you know, people can do regularly, they start to change their relationship with anger. Any really strong physical addiction is based on deep emotional experiences. I feel convinced of that. You know, that we're craving something that we've not had. Yeah, and most of what I think about in terms of, I mean, all these things we've talked about today, Mark, the way I tend to look at it is, I formulate in this simple concept, really. What are we attached to? What am I attaching to right now? So with any habit, I'm attaching to that. With any belief, I'm attaching to that. With any addiction, I'm attaching to that. And how come I'm doing that? Why am I forming an attachment with this habit, thought, belief, this substance? It's, you know, that's where the curiosity for me is. What is it I'm needing? Because there's some deeper emotional experience trying to be met there. And that's the best way we figured it out.
How does one claim sovereignty over oneself?
Yeah, I was hoping you'd be able to answer that one for me, actually. Well, I mean, there's a lot in creating habits, isn't there? There's creating patterns of behavior, deciding what we want and sticking with the decision, and having the self-discipline of that. You know, but that's a very much a performance type. It's very much in the positive psychology realm of creating new things and you know, and creating habits around that. And I think it's really valuable. One of the things I also think about is undoing the stuckness, because that can create, again, a lot of inner conflict. If there's a lot of energy stuck, then, and we're trying to create new energies, it creates a lot of internal battles, I think, and we can often get quite unsettled by that. Yeah, but I think this stuff is really important in terms of, you know, knowing that we're making decisions and what decisions we're making, even if we choose the familiar ones, to be aware that we are making decisions is on the path of self-mastery. Is that knowing what decisions we're making and being conscious of them.
Awesome stuff. Mick, that was great. I'm gonna read you an affirmation, which you just kind of like went over a little bit. And if you want to share a little bit more about it, that's super. Okay. And I think it's relative. The affirmation says, I claim the sovereignty and power of my highest self and align with my highest truth. And I'm pretty sure it's very relevant to what you do and helping people. So I claim the sovereignty and power of my highest self and align with my highest truth. How's it sound?
Well, I think that sounds an integrating affirmation, and it sets us off in the right direction, doesn't it? We're
Yep.
heading in the right way with that. I like it. I like it. And there's a deeper connection with that at the higher self, and what we experience in that higher realm, I think is what a lot of people can feel quite frightened of. As in fact, I've got the quote up there that Mandela is reported to have said, it's our light that frightens us most. So to have courage around that, I think is really important.
Well, Mick, at this point, I just want to get your input. There's people that are watching the show right now, or it could be somebody watching the recorded version, and it could be someone that you probably do know, or it could be a total stranger. But what kind of advice would you give someone about self-knowledge?
Self-knowledge. The first part, I think, is to reflect on experiences. Listen to what people say to you about you. That may be saying a lot about them, but there may be some truth about you. But the main thing is look at what you have difficulty with other people. So when you find it particularly difficult with a work colleague, notice what it is about them, because it's telling you something about you. It's not about them, it's your stuff about you. So that's my way into self-knowledge. If I feel disharmony with someone, well, what is it about me that resists them, who they are? What am I, projecting onto them? What am I not acknowledging in myself? So that's my route into it, is to look at, the things that I find difficult with other people, because it's telling me something about who I am.
Wow, that was awesome. That was really, really great. I really enjoyed having you on. It was a great cup of tea. And before we sign off, do you want to share a little bit more about what you do and how people can probably get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'm a psychotherapist. I work at the moment in Leeds, in the north of England. I'm moving down to London. I'm going to be working from Kingston upon Thames. So my website is www.kingstonspsychotherapy.com. You can get details from me there. Yeah.
So that's www.kingstonspsychotherapy.com.
.com, yes.
Okay, and on that website, they'll find out all the information they would like about you. Is that correct?
Yeah. There's quite a lot of information about me and about psychotherapy, and I've written the odd article, very short, but just the odd thing about a few ideas I've had. So so there's a bit of stuff there.
Well, Mick, it was a pleasure having you on, and I really did get a lot out of it. I'm pretty sure the audience has gotten a lot out of it as well. And I just want to give you a heartfelt thanks, and I want you to have a wonderful day.
Okay, well, thank you, Mark. Thank you for the interview, and thank you for inviting me on. I've really enjoyed it. It's been nice meeting you over the internet and sharing a few ideas with you. It's been fun.
Well, it's my pleasure. So you want to say goodbye to everybody?
Okay. Goodbye. Thanks for watching.